Hello everyone, I'm Deb McBride and welcome to my YouTube channel about astrology. Today we are going to speak of the two upcoming eclipses. So let's get right to it. I'm going to share my screen, which will bring us to the first eclipse, which happens on July 2nd, 2019. I have this for New York City time. If you are not in New York, please make adjustments. So the first eclipse is a solar eclipse, which means that the sun here and the moon are together in the same place at the same time. A solar eclipse happens at the new moon. So this is the new moon. This is not a full moon. And that is the second eclipse, the full moon. That is a lunar eclipse. So the thing that we want to pay attention to here is the position of the sun and the moon and the hour at which this occurs, which is 3:16 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time in New York City. This generates this astrological chart, which gives us a Scorpio ascendant, and that means that this is going to be a passionate, intense eclipse, which is actually very good because Scorpio is a water sign, as is Cancer, which is where the eclipse occurs, because we are in the sign of Cancer since the solstice. And the moon here and the sun here, both at 10 degrees, are close to the north node. And this is how we know it's an eclipse. The sun and the moon are going to be connected to the nodes of the moon. And the nodes, if you saw my last video about the lunar nodes and about the fact that they are with Saturn right now, then you understand the nodes a little more. And if you didn't watch that video, I suggest you do, because it does play into the eclipses. So the sun, the moon, everything here is one contained energy in the sign of Cancer. What is Cancer? Cancer is home, family, security, nature. It is the desire to connect emotionally, connect on a certain spiritual level, but connection, because families are where we connect. Families are where our roots are. Even if it's not your biological family, there's a desire now to connect on some level with what you would call family, okay? So even if it's your friends, these all occur in the 9th house, which is about philosophy and belief systems and sort of foreign countries, travel entities, foreign entities. The moon and the sun coming together at 10 degrees of Cancer is close to the node here at 17. Now, this is 7 degrees apart. It is a little bit of a distance, but within 14 hours, the moon will touch the north node. And so that's part of the eclipse as well. Now remember, eclipses are dark and then they're light. So remember that the light of the sun is going to be hidden while the moon is passing over it. So we have the moon passing over the sun and it blocks the sun's light. This is a solar eclipse. This is a total eclipse, as you can see. And the moon and the sun will be connecting in a very powerful, emotional way. So the first thing we look at is where the sun and the moon are. This is an emotional sign. It's a water sign. It is making a very good aspect over here to the ascendant, which is very good because it's in Scorpio. So the expression, the outward expression of the eclipse is positive and good. It's a good aspect. There is a similarly wide but good aspect over here to Neptune, which is in Pisces. So this is a bit watery, ethereal. You and your friends or loved ones may feel very emotional during this time. So this is something to pay close attention to, because if you are feeling emotional, you need to connect with your emotions and not allow yourself to get carried away. Very important. Emotional eclipses can make us feel like we want to blow a gasket. We don't want to do that. No blowing a gasket. Eclipses inevitably bring emotional issues to the table. So in the days coming, you may feel highly charged emotionally. And I want you to pay attention to that and know where it's coming from. Because the most important thing you can do is channel this energy appropriately in your life and not feel like it's an emotional challenge. This is a very interesting position because it's in the sign of Cancer. And as you can see, we have this opposition situation going on. All these planets up here and then all these planets down here. We'll get to these in a minute. This is all about how we express ourselves in a clean, emotional way. Now, if you know any Cancerians, they are not necessarily open. They're crabs. If they are threatened emotionally, or if their security is threatened, and remember, this is a security-oriented sign, it is ruled by the moon. This is where Cancerians pull back into their shell. You might not get them to come out. You are trying to get your Cancerian child to tell you what's the matter or what's wrong, and they just clam up or crab up. They're not telling you. You're left to guess and intuit and read the constellations to find out what's going wrong with your kid, or your husband or your wife or your cousin or your mother, or your father, whoever, or your cat. So essentially, Cancerian energy is not forthcoming. It's hard for them to come forward and express directly unless they have a whole lot of Gemini going on in their chart. Now, if you have a Cancerian friend who comes forward and talks to you and opens up, be open to them, be polite to them, be kind to them, be willing. Don't be like, well, what brought you around? How do you talk? How come you're talking so much? Don't be like that to anyone right now, actually, because this is expressive in a water emotional way, but it's not really expressive in a way that is open and available. So if someone is coming and being open and available, you need to pay attention and listen. Venus is in Gemini at the very end of Gemini, and Venus's position here tells us a lot about what's going on. There's an expression of love in a verbal, perhaps a verbal way, and that is actually really good. But what's going on here is that Venus, since it's at the end of Gemini, it's very built up talkative energy that has not been necessarily available in these last weeks. It's anything at the end of a sign is it's like the concentrated juice of the sign. So this is a very concentrated expression, verbal expression of Venus. Now, back to the sun and the moon. The moon rules Cancer. Therefore, the moon is the ruler of this chart. It's an eclipse in the sign it loves, in its own sign. So this is going to be very powerful. The north node is the direction we want to go in, the direction of fulfillment, the direction of connection. The south node is the opposite, meaning they are in axis and they are always operating together, but the south node is where we feel slighted, where we're grasping, where we want to get something and we may not be able to attain what we want, and we're a little desperate. So stay focused up here at the north node. What brings you fulfillment? Is it getting together with friends? Is it getting together with family? Is it potentially having a connection with people that you love that you haven't seen in a long time? Or a friend that you want to reconnect with and send love to? Send love to people in your life. And most of all, love yourself. Eclipses are difficult. They bring emotions to the surface that are kind of strange and uncomfortable, and they make us, like I said earlier, want to blow a gasket. So the important thing to do here is keep your head on straight, to keep your mind clear. There's not a lot of air in the sky here, just Venus and Gemini. And so you might be a little bit at a loss for words, or it could run both directions, because Venus is not talking to too many planets. And if Venus is not talking to too many planets, well, then we have to, when it wants to speak, let it speak. When we go to the south node, The south node is right close with Saturn. And Saturn and the south node are an interesting duo because the south node, again, wants to pull us into old habits, into old addictions, into old unhealthy patterns that we are trying to get out of by embracing the north node and the eclipse. Saturn is always about the job we have to do. It's always about where we need to focus our energy to get the job done and be dutiful and responsible. And even though we're not supposed to so much get dragged into this north node, we have to be very careful because we have to see it, work with the energy. South node, I'm sorry, north node. We do want to use the north node. We don't want to get dragged into the south node. We want to see it, work with the energy, and not feel like we are getting pulled into the vortex. Saturn, or any planet at the south node, can make us feel like we're getting pulled into the vortex. I did make a video about the nodes. Have a look at that. I do talk about the vortex and what it means to feel like you're spinning and not being able to get out of a pattern. This is all about working to get out of an old pattern and transform an old pattern. And I do talk about that in that video called Walking a Fine Line with the nodes. Here we have to remember and release and not allow ourselves to get dragged through the vortex, because it's very easy to spin in that vortex and very easy to keep spinning in our thoughts. And acknowledgement. We want recognition and acknowledgement because the south node and Saturn and Pluto are all in Capricorn. This is all about understanding where we have to transform the old pattern, work to transform that old pattern, and not allow ourselves to get pulled in and tricked again by some old vortex that will keep our brains awake all night. Remember that the connection is up here. The connection is to a warm, receptive environment. And think about who that warm and receptive environment represents in your life. You know, where that is. And go to that place that feels warm and receptive to you. Mercury, you see a little S here. Mercury is stationing to go retrograde. Mercury is stopping and slowing down in the sign of Leo. And Mercury will retrograde on the 7th of July. It will stay retrograde until the 31st of July. So Mercury is going to be retrograde for most of the month. What I normally tell people is Mercury retrograde and eclipses aren't the best time to start something brand spanking new. So be very careful about what you're doing. If you're relaunching something, if you're relaunching your business, you're relaunching your website, you're relaunching a blog, anything in your life, it's a relaunch, that's okay. Be very careful. I was always taught that things that we start during eclipse periods, between the first eclipse and the second eclipse, are not necessarily going to bear fruit. So we have to be careful when we plant our seeds. I think it's better to wait till August to do anything brand new, but that's my opinion. You got to do what you got to do in your life. Remember, though, connect with warmth in your life. Wherever that is, go find that warm vibe and connect with it. If you have a planet at 10 degrees Cancer, or at one of the nodes, or one of your points, like your ascendant at 10 degrees Cancer, remember that this is going to affect you profoundly, okay? This is dark before it's light, because when we have a new moon, we're in the dark of the moon until the moment of the new moon, which is at 3:16 p.m. So in this eclipse, what might happen is you are confronting dark emotions or dark feelings, or you're not feeling like yourself. You're caught up in some vortex of old stuff, or just not feeling like yourself. You're feeling kind of disconnected, and just be with it. Just don't give it a lot of energy. It's the middle of the afternoon on the East Coast, so you may not be paying attention. You might be just working. You know, it's a Tuesday. It might be any other Tuesday. Be very aware of like the moods you get in. Cancer's a moody sign. The moon is a moody planet. It's where we have those ups and downs, those tides of emotion throughout our day. If you are feeling moody, if you are feeling a little off, a little depressed, or just moody. Just remember it's going to pass once the eclipse passes, and you're going to get a deeper connection. Strive for a connection with people once that eclipse happens, okay? So that's eclipse number 1. Eclipse number 2 is right here, July 16th, 2019, also a Tuesday, because they occur 2 weeks apart. Again, we are in New York. It's 5:38 p.m. on a Tuesday. It's happy hour in New York in the middle of the week. So this is a different energy. This eclipse happens at the south node. The last eclipse happens at the north node. The first one happens at the north node. The second one happens at the south node. This is where we really have to be sure we don't get pulled into the vortex, because everything's happening in the old pattern. Everything is this, and the moon is so close to Pluto. The moon is so close to Pluto, and Saturn is so close to the south node, that this is one of those times when we really feel like we're getting sucked in down the drain. Don't let that happen. Again, focus here. Even though the south node is going to get you to try to, sink into the old patterns, the best thing for you to do is focus your energy up here and look at this lovely aspect. Venus is with the north node. Again, it's still in Cancer. The north node, the sun is still in Cancer. Venus is now moved into Cancer. It's all about love. It's all about loving yourself, giving yourself love in the area of your chart ruled by Cancer. So say you have Cancer here in the 8th house. Maybe you need to, the 8th house is sex, death, and other people's money. It's also deep psychology. It's also deep, intimate connections with people. Maybe you need to, again, connect with a friend. Mercury is in full swing retrograde. Maybe you need to go back and reconnect with a loved one that you haven't spoken to in a while, or you haven't had time to connect with. It's really a deep, deep, profound connection that you want to make on both eclipses. That's what's going to save the day. Deep, profound connections with people. And we should all strive for that in our life anyway. But self-love is very important too. Say you're Cancer rising. The love should be going in the direction of you. Go do something for yourself that day. Buy yourself something. Connect with people who love you, your family, your friends, your buddies. This all sounds very girly, but if you're a guy and you're feeling a little lonely, go connect with your best friend. Go connect with your dad. Go connect with someone that's going to show you affection and camaraderie. Venus is camaraderie. Go out with your buddies. Go get a beer. This is all about connection with people. Mars, in the meantime, will have squared Uranus, so that's very exciting and very intense. And again, eclipses bring emotions and issues to the table. Whatever you've been dealing with, it's going to come up. It's going to surface during these weeks. Be aware of it. Do not allow yourself to get sucked in to an argument with someone. Maybe you have a spouse you argue with all the time, or a colleague or a boss that you argue with all the time, or they push you around. Don't let them do that. Stand in your power. One of the things that we need to pay attention to is, even though Saturn and Pluto are here at the south node with the moon, we still need to own our power. We need to work at owning our power. We need to work at our mastery, work at not letting ourselves get sucked into the old pattern, and just remember that we're transforming on a very deep level. Go in the direction of deep. What happens here at the south node is, yes, the moon is here, and it is with Pluto, and it could rake up some very profound emotions from the past. The south node is the past, the old habits reaching back into the past. We don't want to get sucked into that, and I keep saying that, but it's really important. You don't know how you're going to feel that day. We feel a little out of control on eclipses, and with Mars squaring Uranus, the lid may come off. You may blow your stack at someone, and you're like, oh, God, I didn't mean to do that. Really, I didn't. So be very careful how you process these eclipses. The South Node and Saturn, again, we're working through an old pattern. We need to be aware of it. If Now, what's going to happen that's special that day is that the moon will make occultations to both Saturn and Pluto. And when there's an occultation, the lights go out. So once again, we are dealing with almost multiple eclipses. Remember, when it's a lunar eclipse, the moon's light goes out. So wherever you are in the world, and if you're watching the eclipse, then you are going to see the light go out, okay? The moon's light go out, like that little chunk is taken out of the moon. Even though it's full, you might see that little bite taken out of the moon. That's where the moon's light is being diminished by the sun. Just because it's dark by you doesn't mean it's dark someplace else in the world, because it's light somewhere else in the world. So, you may see the full moon and it may be dark. Somewhere else they can't see that. But what will happen is the light of the moon gets diminished. It's going to be a very weird day, a weird feeling. Because first, hours prior, the moon is going to hit Saturn. So we're about 16 hours prior, the moon is going to hit Saturn. So it's at 5 in the afternoon. So in the middle of the night, the moon will hit Saturn. And then the moon is going to hit Pluto about 6 hours prior to this. So like about, 11:30 in the morning or so. And what that means is that it's going to occult Saturn, then it's going to hit the south node, and then occult Pluto. And then it's going to have the sun is going to occult the moon. So, wow, this is a lot of lights blinking on and off. Saturn's light will go out, Pluto's light will go out, and the moon, which is shutting those lights off for a moment, just for a moment, the moon's light will go out because of the sun. So it's like a domino effect. The moon's going to hit Saturn, the moon's going to hit Pluto. The sun is going to say, hey, I'm shutting your light off now, just for a minute, and then it will go away, The sun will move, the moon will be right again, and these are going to be weird stirrings in our beings. Capricorn is where we want recognition. It's where we want accomplishment. We want to be paid. It's where we want to win awards. It's where we want to be told, you've done a great job. Saturn and Pluto are like striving for some recognition here and not always getting it, because the moon, it shuts off the lights. It's saying, good night, Saturn. Good night, Pluto. We can't see them. We can't find them. So the very work that we're doing, the very work that I mentioned, working out an old pattern, working hard to transform an old pattern, you may feel like you don't have a grip on that during this July 16th and like the night before, the 15th. Why won't you feel like you have a grip on your transformation? Because the moon is putting the lights out on Saturn and Pluto. Again, I talk about this in my last video about the nodes. You'll get a deeper description on that video as well. So the moon here is connecting to Saturn first, which is the energy of responsibility. Pluto, the energy of transformation and profound shift, consciousness. And the moon will be connecting to the south node as well. And that's when we really have to pay attention. You will learn so much about yourself and what you're going through this year if you pay close attention to your feelings and your thoughts this day. If you're so prone to do that, write it down. Remember it. What are you feeling this day? What is it about? What comes up? Is it your family? Is it your job? Where do you not feel recognized? Where do you not feel acknowledged? This is where you have to go to the healing of the North Node and Venus. And this is where the love and recognition are going. So if you are a person who has a good amount of Capricorn in your chart, or Capricorn in a very sensitive area of your chart, you got to go in the direction of where the opposite house is, where Cancer is. Because that's where, and it's interesting because Capricorn's a matter-of-fact, business-oriented sign. Cancer is where we go feel the family love or the, group love. It's not where we're getting our business needs met. So do your business, get your work done in that Capricornian house, and just pay no mind to it. Stop worrying about whether you're recognized or not. Because if you pay attention to where the North Node goes and you embrace the warmth of Venus in Cancer, then naturally the healing will occur and the South Node will get its desires met, its needs met. These are almost insatiable needs, and we're going to feel insatiably needy. If someone around you is being insatiably needy, if, say, for example, your baby or your partner or your somebody, your boss, insatiably need you, they need you, they need you. You see it, first of all, as a projection of yourself. Where are you feeling insatiably needy in your life? Because if you answer that, then your projection out into the world is not going to look insatiably needy. And then focus on where Cancer is in your natal chart, because this is where you're going to get fulfilled. And even if it doesn't feel exciting at the time, because this is where all the juicy stuff happens. The South Node is where the juice happens, where we want the juice, the zing, the caffeinated adrenaline shot. Okay? That's not going to feed us. It's not. You can take as much caffeine as you want. You can zap your adrenals with as much Red Bull as you think you can handle. It's not going to come from here. It's going to come from going and sitting down with your favorite friends and having a bowl of pasta or whatever comfort food represents to you, you know, whatever chocolate cake is, and just sort of have some comfort in your life, because that's what Cancer represents, comfort. This is actually better than we think, because the ascendant here, at least in New York, is Sagittarius, and Jupiter is right on the ascendant. So there's something good and fortunate in this eclipse, and I don't have a bad feeling about it at all, really. I do feel like eclipses with Saturn Pluto at the South Node could really be like big things in the world. Like, look for governmental decisions and people reacting and getting hot under the collar because Capricorn is ruled by the government. But ultimately, everything's going to be okay. And we may not see it at the time because we're blinded by this, again, the vortex. Just be aware of what you're reacting to, because this is where we react. And this is where we're going to want to be reactive and get crazy. Can't do it. Can't do it. Got to go where the comfort is. Got to go get an ice cream. Unless, of course, ice cream is how you react when you're really upset. And, you know, addiction. We want to be careful of our addictions too. So this is actually a connection to people. Go connect with people. Go out with your friends. Connect. Give your cousin a call. But I do feel like it's going to be okay because of Jupiter on the ascendant, and that's actually a very good omen. Eclipses do bring change. Eclipses do bring things. It's like after a thunderstorm, when there has been lightning that cleanses the energy and thunder that cleanses the energy, and there's that sniff of nature in the air and that feeling of the energy being cleared. That's what eclipses do. So pay attention to that. Pay attention to where the air gets cleared. Try not to get into an emotional tussle with anyone during this. Try not to let your ego get the better of you. Capricorn is very much about recognition. Why am I not getting the award? Why didn't I get the promotion or the raise? Why did they get it and I didn't? I've been here longer. Skip it. Don't even try. Let it go. Don't indulge it. Don't react. It's going to be really hard. It's going to be really hard to not react. Just look at it. Acknowledge it. Go to the North Node. Go to what feels fulfilling to you. Maybe it's something that you haven't even discovered yet, but that's why I'm telling you to pay attention to how you're feeling and journal about it if you can. And that's about it. I am Deb McBride. I have a podcast right now it's at debmcbride.com if you'd like to hear it. It's on Podbean. And I am available for astrological sessions if you're interested. And if you have more eclipse questions, you can always contact me, deb@debmcbride.com. I welcome visitors, and I welcome questions, and I welcome clients who would like a session, especially during these intense times. So it's good to get an astrological session, maybe not with me, maybe with anybody, during intense times like this, especially if you feel change coming. And pay attention to what's happening to you during those weeks and see how you feel after it's over. I wish you the best of success and love and light in this eclipse season.